I was born without a class. No warrior emblem, no Mahasi heal, not even a healer's mark. During the awakening ceremony, when the sacred light was supposed to reveal my destiny, it simply skipped over me. It was like I wasn't even part of the system to begin with. You might expect panic, or whispers, or stares, but none of that happened. People just looked past me, their eyes sliding away as if their minds refused to focus. It was unsettling. In a world where your class, your power, defined your very existence, I barely qualified as real. My face seemed to blur in their vision, like a smudge on a painting they couldn't wipe away. If I stood still for too long, I'd vanish from their memories. If I spoke, my words would fade from their minds just seconds later, leaving only a vague sense of confusion behind. They eventually gave me a name, a background character, a flaw in the world's design, someone meant to fill space, not to shape destiny. Even monsters ignored me completely. Their eyes would pass right over my body without any reaction. Villains would brush past my shoulder in the street without ever sensing my presence. I realized even the gods, watching from their realms, beyond the sky, never lingered long enough to notice me. At first, I was sure it was a curse. I watched as heroes rose, their names sung in every tavern. I watched mages tear open the sky with brilliant arcs of magic, and warriors carve their legends into the very fabric of history. And I stayed behind. I swept floors, carried crates, and existed in the quiet moments between the events that mattered. Every festival, every celebration for a hero's victory was a sharp reminder of what I wasn't. Every cheer from the crowd felt like proof that fate itself had left me behind. I started to wonder if I would just grow old and die without ever being truly seen by another living soul. Then one night, everything changed. The capital city screamed. A demon lord's general had infiltrated the city, walking openly through the crowded streets. Alarms rang far too late. The city guards were frozen in terror. Heroes rushed in, but it was already chaos. Fear spread faster than fire. Everyone saw him. Everyone, that is, except me. He passed the terrified guards, the celebrated champions, even the high priests who were frantically chanting spells of protection. He walked right past me without slowing his stride, his gaze fixed on the royal palace. And in that moment, as he passed, something inside me shifted. A realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. If the world could unsee me, then the world couldn't stop me either. I started to follow him, through torch-lit alleys and down grand marble halls. I walked in his shadow, close enough to hear the quiet rasp of his breathing. My footsteps made no sound to his ears. My presence left no mark on his monstrous instincts. As we moved deeper into the palace, I saw a dagger that had slipped from a fallen guard's hand, gleaming on the stone floor. I bent down and picked it up. No one noticed. When I raised that dagger, no magical alarm sounded. When I plunged it into a gap in his dark armor, reality itself seemed to hesitate, unsure of how to even process what was happening. The demon general fell without understanding why. His final expression wasn't one of fear or pain, it was pure confusion. He died never knowing what, or who, had ended him. The city, of course, celebrated. The heroes, who arrived after the fact, took the credit. New songs were written about their bravery. My name was never spoken, and for the first time in my entire life, I smiled. After that night, I started to train, alone. I couldn't learn from masters. They'd forget I was there in the middle of a sentence. So, I learned by watching. I studied heroes as they sparred in the training yards, memorizing how they moved, how spells were formed in the air, how a body reacted when pushed to its absolute limits. I learned where armor bends and where magic weakens. I learned where a hero's confidence turns into carelessness. I turned my observation into instinct. I became a ghost with intent, an absence sharpened into a purpose. I was a weapon the system had never planned for. I started to appear in places no one else could go. I stood in the shadowed corners of rooms where villains plotted the end of nations. I listened from beside thrones where kings whispered of betrayal and war. Their darkest secrets flowed freely because no one ever realized they were being taken. I chose when to interfere and when to simply wait and watch. I ended threats long before they could grow into legends. I erased tyrants while they were still monologuing to an empty room, convinced that no one could ever reach them. Sometimes, I'd save an entire village without them ever knowing that danger had even come. Other times, I would change the course of history by removing a single person at just the right moment. There was no applause. No statues were raised in my honor. But power, even unseen power, never stays unnoticed forever. The gods began to sense it. They saw gaps appearing in their prophecies. Great battles that were foretold to happen suddenly ended without a climax. Feared villains vanished without a single confrontation. The future they had written was starting to unravel, and it no longer made sense. They began searching for anomalies, for errors in the system, for something that didn't belong. One day, a hero known for his seer class stopped dead in the middle of a conversation. His eyes narrowed, focusing on what everyone else thought was empty air. He looked straight at me. He couldn't see me clearly, but it was closer than anyone had ever come, and he said softly, "There's something wrong here." For the first time, I felt a cold spike of fear. The world began to adapt. The powerful started creating new spells designed to reveal the unseen. Monsters evolved, learning to sense intent rather than just relying on sight. Intricate traps were laid for an enemy no one could name or describe. Still, they couldn't truly see me. All they felt was a growing unease, a disturbing sense that something important was missing from their understanding of the world. Then came the final war. The sky burned as armies of light and shadow clashed. Magic tore the very land apart. Heroes charged forward under their shining banners and ancient prophecies, believing this was the great, final moment that history had promised them. I walked right through the center of the battlefield, completely untouched. Blades swung through the empty air where I stood. Spells detonated inches away from me but never found their target. While legends fought their loud, glorious battles, I moved quietly. The Demon King stood at the heart of the chaos, radiating pure power. He was confident, untouchable, certain that no force in the universe could reach him without Destiny's explicit approval. But I was already there. When he finally turned, sensing something amiss, his eyes widened, not because he saw me, but because he felt that the world had just skipped a step. Fate had failed to announce its next move. I ended the war without a single grand speech, without a prophecy being fulfilled, and without any witnesses to record the moment. The sky simply cleared, as if nothing truly extraordinary had happened at all. History remembers the heroes. It remembers their shining armor, their dramatic battles, and the names they carved into stone. It does not remember me, and that is why the world still exists. I am the background character, the non-player, the one who moves when no one is watching, and as long as the system keeps making mistakes, I will be there to correct them. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. See you next time.